So hi everybody, Dawn here, and Nikki
Hey.
Simpson is with us, and Nikki Parmenter. And just a quick sort of like reminder of everything that we're doing. We've got lots of workshops coming up, one in Cheltenham this weekend, and lots of face-to-face stuff. We've also been at the Knitting and Stitching Show, and we're going to be at the Harrogate one as well. So if anybody's going up to that, come and see us. We've got another tea and chat in a month's time, and I can't for the life of me think who it is, which is really bad because
Look it up. Hold on.
So Nikki's gonna.
It's Louise Campbell from War for Schools. So she's talking about competition
Yeah,
and all
that's
sorts of things that she does.
yeah. That would be really
She
interesting.
does so many different things.
It's brilliant, and she has there's loads of resources on that website of theirs, and she's going to talk about that. Well done.
And then December we've got Trudy she's really brilliant, clever lady who does AI, but she's going to specifically look at AI in textiles.
That's really, really important thing that teachers have really got to get their head round, because it's really coming into force. So if you're not already using AI in any form, that would be a great thing talk to come to, because Trudy is like our expert anyway. So other than that, we've got some research happening at the moment. Really important for us. If you know if you have any feeder schools, primary schools, we're doing a survey. We are really fighting to keep textiles in the curriculum. So anything that we are doing is pushing to make sure that those people who are in the power to do things remember textiles and how important textiles is. So if we ask you guys to do a survey, please do the survey or send it out. This particular one, the primary one, is specifically looking at what's being taught at primary. This absolutely has a knock-on effect to you guys in secondary. So please do get your feeder schools to send the survey to them and get them to fill it in. It's so important. And we're doing some other research as well, which you'll hear about as time passes over the next few months, which is really important. And it's all about the review that's happening, about the curriculum, about the review that's happening for D&T. I don't know if you teach art and design textiles or you teach D&T textiles, but all of this is going to be in review, and we really need our community, our textile teachers, to support what we're doing and what everybody else is trying to keep textiles in the curriculum. So I'm going to just like hand over now, I think, to Nikki Parmenter, who is a textile artist in her own right. She did teach for many years and is now working as a textile artist, and she would. I don't need to say anything else because she's going to tell you all about what she does. So welcome, Nikki.
Okay, thank you. Right, thank you for joining us, everybody. I'm going to do a screen share. Just bear with me a second. Slideshow. Can you see that now? Can you see the screen share? Yes? No?
Yes, we can, yeah.
Right, slideshow. Why is it not doing from beginning? Right, okay, just give me 1 second. Right, okay. So I don't know whether any of you know me, but there's just a little bit of information. I'm based in Poynton in Cheshire. I'm an ex-art teacher. I actually taught art and design, and I'm a self-taught textile artist. And since I took early retirement in 2016, I've been doing workshops, textile courses, written magazine articles, and I've been exhibiting my own work as well. So the main focus of this evening's talk is looking at using plastics. Now, I'm just going to see if I can move this bar up to the top. Right, that's better. So the workshop that I'm hoping to run at Genome is what I call plastic entrapment. On screen now, you can see an example of how this work actually comes about. So the basis is a drawing. So this project is very good for people who perhaps aren't as confident with drawing. So you could print something off from the internet, for example. But the technique is essentially start with a drawing. In this case, it's an A3 piece, which is based on Victorian jewellery. And what I've done then is I've taken some clear PVC, and then you put that on top of your drawing, and then you trace it. Now, there's a biro here. I've discovered subsequently that it's actually much better to use a Sharpie pen. So you literally trace the design from the drawing onto the PVC. When I first started doing this technique, I didn't realise that you could buy PVC by the metre. And I actually bought some shower curtaining in the first instance, but subsequently found out that Dunelm Mills sell PVC on a roll for £3 a metre. So it's a very cheap resource to use. So the technique is that you, as I say, trace with a Sharpie, and then you do a layering technique after that. So if I can just move on to the next one. Is it going to behave? Yeah, okay. So what you're seeing on this screen is some work in progress. So top left there, what you're seeing there is a sandwich, it's a collage. On the bottom of the sandwich is a plain piece of PVC. In the middle are cellophanes and iridescent fabrics, plastics. And then on the top is the traced piece. So you sandwich all those together, pin them together, and then you use a free machine embroidery foot to actually go around all of the outlines. So you can see on this one, I've gone around all the outlines, and I've started to do some thread painting on the actual body of the bird. So here you can see the finished bird. It doesn't quite show as well as it might on this photograph, but it's actually padded. So the bird's body here is padded and the wing is slightly separate. That comes forward. Also on this slide, I've put some funky foam, which is one of my favorite materials. This is a really useful material for creating other things like leaves, flowers, etc. And you can paint it, you can incise it, you can stitch through it, and it's fantastic for creating additional features, if you like. So the next slide shows the finished piece. Now, I do have these to show you afterwards. So you can see here that the birds are both made with the plastic entrapment technique. I prefer actually the one on the right-hand side, which I think has got more subtle colour. And it's A3 in size in total. And what I've done is used gold leaf around the edges to create a frame. I've used the funky foam for the flowers, and then the feature is the plastic entrapment, which is the birds. Now, this is another one. This was actually featured in Maggie Gray's Wow Book. I think it's Wow Book 7. And again, I've got this to show you in person, if you like, afterwards. So this initially was an A3 drawing of tulips. I'm very keen on doing my own drawings. I actually did a degree in fine art, so drawing is a very important part of my work to me. So again, it's a drawing of tulips, again, traced onto PVC using a Sharpie pen, and then layered. So this is the type of project that I'm hoping to provide at Janome. So it's to make a panel, a plastic panel, which can be displayed in several different ways. So in this instance, I've used iridescent blue cellophane, some iridescent papers, and even some party bags. So if you can see here, there are some little dots. These are actually little plastic party bags. So it's quite sparsely stitched, although it might look quite colourful here. The actual stitching is fairly loosely done. The advantage in that is that you can display it in several different ways. So you can put it against a window and it looks like a stained glass window. You can put it against a wall and it looks like a wall piece. But what I particularly like is that you can manipulate these shapes and you can make them into columns. So you could look at possibly things like light shades, lampshades, or vases. And this one inside it is a plastic bottle. And inside that, obviously, you can see there are some flowers. So the idea is that you can turn something that's two-dimensional into something that's three-dimensional. This one also had lights on it. You can just about see here, I'm quite fond of using strings of LED lights. And they always add that extra dimension of kind of interest and it just makes them look far more lively. They're very cheap to buy. I buy those from Amazon. I think they cost about £1 per metre strip of light. So again, it's a relatively inexpensive way of producing a slightly different outcome. Moving on to some other ideas for plastics. I'm sure that you've all heard of art forms in nature, and perhaps you haven't, but I know that when I was teaching, this was a book that we used an awful lot. It's by Ernst Haeckel, who was a German, I think he was a Darwinist, and he produced these amazing illustrations of natural forms, so flora, fauna, insects, flowers. But the way that they were produced in the book, they look like designs. So you can see here, these are all sea urchins and corals, but they're beautifully symmetrical. And so they lend themselves really beautifully to actually design. And so this is my quite loose interpretation of a free machine stitched jellyfish. So this is the image that it's taken from, and this is my interpretation. So this was done by drawing on a piece of calico, then adding cellophanes on the top, and all of these stitches here are free machine stitched on the top. So again, it's a slightly different way of using plastics combined with the calico. These two are also based on the Ernst Haeckel format, so I'm quite keen on giving things a context. So these two, I think one on the left-hand side is probably 2 feet across, and the one on the right is slightly smaller. But this one was also looking at recycling plastics or reusing things that would normally be thrown away. So you can see I've taken the circular format of the Haeckel pieces. Again, it's 2 pieces of PVC. This time though, rather than drawing a design, I put the PVC down flat on the table and then started to stick different elements down onto the top of it. So you may be able to see here, there are some curtain hooks. There are also some toothpicks. So as I say, you can actually hit that recycling aspect quite well with this type of project. And then what I've done is simply free machine stitched over the top of the whole thing. So there's actually no drawing on top of there at all. It's all free stitching. And the PVC is incredibly resilient. So when you've done several lines of stitching, you find that you can cut it out and make a stencil shape. Quite often have people say, well, if you stitch through and you keep going and going, doesn't it actually start to degrade the PVC and make it fall apart? Well, it doesn't. You're just actually building up layers and layers of stitch. So it is incredibly resilient. And it is quite, quite easy to stitch through as well. The other question I get is, do you break lots of needles? Is it difficult to stitch through? The answer is no. It's actually very smooth. In fact, it's probably easier to stitch through this than it is through fabric, because you haven't got things that is kind of snagging on your needle. And this is another example. So again, based on the Ernst Haeckel art forms in nature, again, looking at upcycling or recycling. So again, using the circular format of the corals and the seaweed and the sea urchins. But inside this, as well as plastics, things like tiddlywinks, cellophanes, etc., the actual shape of this is a crocheted mat. That's what you find on your grandma's dressing table. And again, that's been sandwiched between 2 layers of plastics and then free machine stitched. And here around the edge of this kind of frill blue here, this is blue nylon rope from B&Q. And these are cable ties. So again, it's interesting to source unexpected materials that you then use in a different way. So things that you would probably walk past in daily life, but you can actually use them to create different effects. And this is a close-up of one of the pieces. So on this one, you can see it's all free machine stitched. And here there are some halved drinking straws, plastic drinking straws, sequins, and I've got various pieces of lace in there and little split pins. So again, all free machine stitched. These 2 pieces are from a separate piece of work altogether. And again, I'm focusing on the plastics. These 2 pieces are for a very large scale image that I'm working on at the moment, which is looking at endangered species. So it's going to be called Wonder Room, and it's it's for colour exhibition. And the colour I was given for the exhibition was red. So my research led me to investigating the red list Now, of course, there are lots of different red lists, but the one I was looking at specifically was endangered species. So on the right-hand side, I've got a mandarin fish. Now, apparently mandarin fishes in real life are about 4 centimetres, but in my piece, I think it must be about 2 feet in length. But you can see here, all of this is traced onto plastic. So I've first of all done the drawing, then traced it, and you can see here I've used some very beautiful, quite iridescent cellophane to create the fin. Also, the cellophane is fantastic for creating water. So if you're wanting to investigate water and movement, then it's a really brilliant resource to use. Here are some orchids. So this orchid is, well, the background's actually drawn onto calico and then free machine stitched. And then this orchid is done onto the plastics. And then I've actually stitched that and then again cut some areas out to create quite a kind of a delicate effect. Again, this one is plastics. This one is on show at a gallery, or it's at a house called Gorthorpe Hall, which is in Lancashire. And this was from an exhibition I had about 4 years ago, just around lockdown. So I'm very keen on using circles as a base or as a compositional technique. So this one I would say again is about two feet across. And you can see that because it's against a window, you get this very clear stained glass window effect. So the head is drawn onto calico, and this is based on this image here, which is actually a platter, which is on display at the Williamson Museum and Art Gallery in Birkenhead. And it's produced by a factory called Della Robbia, who worked in Birkenhead around the 1894, I think, to 1906. And I've actually reinterpreted this platter using the plastic technique here. What fascinates me is that this image here is actually in the Victoria and Albert Museum, and that was done in about, I think, about 1500. So I do like to research and try to make links with different times and different places, but it just fascinated me to see that somebody 400 years later had looked at this piece here at the bottom and then created this, which is a very true translation. But again, looking at the plastics and looking how you can really manipulate these to make some beautiful results. This was another piece. This is 4 feet across, again using plastics. Again, a bit of context. This is based on the artist William de Morgan, who worked at about the same time as William Morris, and he designed tiles and lots of ceramic items. And this was in an exhibition somewhere called Cannon Hall, which is a stately home in Barnsley. And De Morgan has got lots of pieces in the galleries there. And because I was showing some work in an exhibition, I looked to William de Morgan to get some inspiration. So again, I've actually drawn these myself, but you can see it would be quite easy to print things out for students and then for them to work on them, to trace from them, and then to kind of manipulate them and make them into something which has a more kind of personal touch. This image, at the moment, I have a piece of work in Chester Cathedral. So what you're seeing here is 2 images from the same drawing. Now, this drawing is 8 feet by 4 feet. And the subject matter is St. Werburgh and the geese. So I was asked to contribute to an exhibition about a stained glass artist called Trina Cox, who used to live and work in the Northwest, but also has pieces elsewhere. And I decided I wanted to create a stained glass inspired piece, again using plastics, which was a perfect medium for this particular project. So there's a story behind the piece. And St. Werburgh lived in 700 AD, and she was a Benedictine abbess who was connected to Chester Cathedral. And she tended a flock of geese that lived nearby. And one day, the steward from the convent killed one of the geese, cooked it and ate it, and then buried the bones. And St. Werburgh was so furious with him that she found the bones, and resurrected them. And so you always see her, there's a shrine to her in the cathedral, so you always see her surrounded by geese. This piece took ages to do because usually I make all sorts of different pieces separately first and then put them together as one. But with this one, because of the nature of it, I had to actually work out which piece was going where, a little bit like a jigsaw. So it actually was technically quite demanding. The geese, to give you some idea of size, they're about 2 feet by 2 feet square. And I think on the next slide, you can see some of the detail of the finished ones. So again, you can imagine if I've traced from the images here and then layered them up. So this is, again, it's a different material I've discovered. So rather than cellophanes in the middle, I found on Amazon a material called iridescent holographic vinyl. And the interesting thing about this is that when you look at it from different angles, the colour changes. I think that there's quite a lot of this fabric around at the moment. I think you'll find quite a lot of pencil cases or diary covers using this very kind of iridescent shimmery fabric. And it's actually a beautiful fabric to work with. So you can see here all of these layers, and then the stitching, just black outlines. It's really quite effective. It just creates this idea of stained glass very, very effectively. I first started using plastics in about several years ago, actually. I think it was perhaps about 2018 when I made two pieces. The first one on the left-hand side is called Fade Out 1, and it's about 5 feet 5 by 3.5 feet across. And this was looking at the Great Barrier Reef in Australia and the damage being done to the reef by plastics, pollution, global warming, etc. And so I decided that I would use some real plastics in the piece for that little bit of realism. So these are actually acetate sheets that have been sandwiched together with sequins in the middle and then free machine stitched. So having done that, that inspired me to make Fade Out 2, this piece on the right-hand side, which is made entirely using plastics. So again, PVC from Dunelm, lots of drawing first of all. So this piece is again 5 feet by perhaps about 3.5, 4 feet. And the lobster down here is even stuffed with bubble wrap. So if I can just show you the piece here, you can see it's quite densely stitched. It's slightly out of focus, I think, this one. But if I'm doing something which has a face and an eye, then I'll always use a safety eye and then some funky foam around the edge to create a focal point. But you can see here that I've used all sorts of sequins, etc., to create the stitching and the bubbles. And I think the next one is probably the lobster. So as I say, this is stuffed with bubble wrap. And I've also looked at some of the Ernst Haeckel images to create some of the seaweeds and the corals. This is me standing in front of a companion piece. So this one is also about conservation. Again, the context, I've looked at Hokusai's koi carp, which I love the image. I think it's beautiful. It's really kind of sinuous, very curvaceous. You can see that I'm standing next to it, so you get an idea of the scale. So I liked the idea of having the fishes mirror imaged, if you like a kind of Pisces composition. I called it and two fishes after the biblical quotation. So, you know, thousands of years ago, the oceans were pure, they were clean, they were unpolluted. But now there's a lot of, well, in the water here, I've got plastics, I've got sweet wrappers, all sorts of things swirling around behind the fish here. And then I've got some quotations to give it some context. So we've got around the edges, 1 million plastic bottles are purchased every minute. We have a responsibility, and oceans are so vast and so mysterious. And that quotation is from David Attenborough. So I do like to try and combine some context, as I say. So I'm making something for a reason. I'm not just picking something out of the air and thinking, well, I quite fancy doing some fish, so I'll do this. You know, I do try to create some kind of backstory. This one was from again a very large piece. This is just one of many birds that I made for this particular piece, but this one, the parrot, is 45 centimeters across. So again, lots of drawing initially, traced onto the PVC and then layered. So it's a little bit like the birds you saw earlier on. So here the bird is actually padded. So this head here is separate from the wing in the background. And the other reason I've put this slide up is because as well as doing free machine stitching, I also put acrylic paint on. So these white areas here and the blue areas, it's actually acrylic paint to add highlights and to give it some kind of depth and a three-dimensional quality. And this is also from the bird piece that I did. So this one, these two here are actually drawn on calico, but the grebe here, again, has been drawn and then traced onto the PVC. And you can see how this beautiful shimmery cellophane is perfect for this, for the water interpretation. So you've got these lovely colours coming through, which again change colour, especially if there's a light directed straight onto them. So these are just a few pieces done in workshops. I believe that this one here on the right hand side was one that was done in a workshop, Textile Skills Centre workshop in Rochdale, I seem to remember. I think these two are done using fabrics, but this one was a frog which was done on a Zoom call, and this one again was done with PVC and layering. So that's all the slides I wanted to show you. I want to just show you some images now, which are I can show you in front of me. So I'm just going to switch my camera around. Okay. So this is the drawing I was talking about for the original, the tulips one. So that's the A3 drawing. This one went off to be photographed for a magazine, so I had to keep sending this down to London. So this, you may not be able to see very clearly here, but it's faded a little bit, but this is actually traced tulips, and then in the middle, I've got these cellophanes, gold papers, etc. And then this is the finished piece here. So you can see that you can bend around quite easily to create this three-dimensional vessel. And it's got these little butterflies on the top, but it does, you know, it is very resilient piece. You know, you can do all sorts with that. I've also got another piece, which is an A4. This one, the A3, sorry, so this is the same size. So this one was for an underwater theme. So I don't know if you can see that. That was done at a school. I initially did this for school in Nottingham. So again, you've got this very see-through effect, but also you can twist around and you can make some interesting three-dimensional shapes with that. Also, I've done various projects for Stitch magazine, which is the Embroiderers Guild magazine. And I did this project, which came out, I think it was, June, July 2024. And the frog on here, this has been done using the plastic technique. So you can probably see here, I've got lots of little areas here where I've not stitched on the frog, and you can see the actual inlay coming through. And the iridescent cellophane is brilliant for things like dragonflies or insects' wings, because you've got that beautiful kind of see-through effect. And another one which has got plastics on, this was last year's Christmas one for the Embroiderers Guild magazine. So this one is a partridge in a pear tree. And again, this one is traced onto the PVC. So I just want to smaller pieces. So again, I do a workshop called Small Worlds, where I create a creature or a fish, and that's then displayed within a circle. So if I just show you a finished one. So this one's a workshop that I've already provided for Textile Skills Centre. I've done this, I think, in Rochdale and also Cranley. So this is drawn and then traced onto the PVC and then stitched. And then what I use are these wire rings, which are used for flower arranging. And what you can do then is you can wrap these with different things. So for example, you can you can wrap the frames with things like fabrics and wool, so you can create a border. And then the next thing is to add all sorts of different things using funky foam or different materials to create an environment. So this is exactly the same plastic technique here. So I've got butterflies. I have here there's a seahorse which is partially stitched. So you can see here I stitched the outline first and then start to stitch within the lines here. So you sort of you thread paint as much as you wish on there. And this is where you've got to really nag the students to keep going, because they want to give up. They say, no, it's going to take me forever, which is a very common phrase I find. But it's essentially the more you stitch, the better. But obviously you don't want to overstitch it, but you need to stitch enough so that you actually cover most of the inside. So there's some tulips. There are lots of little fishes here. We've got some birds. More frogs. I'm quite keen on my frogs, so I've got lots of frogs here. So the workshop that I'm hoping will run will be for people to choose from various templates and then to create an A3 piece that will be machine stitched and that can then be turned into some kind of a vessel or a wall hanging. There's a completed butterfly here. See this one? So they do look quite densely stitched, but the idea is that you leave some spaces where you can see the iridescence coming through, because obviously you don't want to stitch over all of it, otherwise it would have, you would have you know, negated actually layering everything. And then I said I would show you the bird pieces. So these are the birds that I had showed you initially. So you can see here the wings are separate here. So that's the brightly coloured one. And this one here is the slightly more neutral colour. But again, you can see how I've stitched the wings and I've padded the body. But I think that's probably just about all that I wanted to show you. There's just a chameleon here, which you might be interested to see. Again, this is plastics, but this is a slightly different ring. So rather than a flat ring, what I've got for this one, it's actually like a dish shape. So you've got a frame within which you can put your piece. And this one also does have lights on, which should be able to switch on. Okay. I don't know if you can see that, possibly not, but just about. You can see there are some lights added to that. So the Genome studio is a brilliant resource. I actually live quite near to Genome. I live in Poynton, and Genome HQ's in Stockport. And they've got a fantastic resource. They've got all the machines there. They've got lots and lots of cottons and things that you can use. They're very helpful in terms of technical advice, etc. So you know, it's a fantastic venue, which I'm hoping to get back to. But yeah, I think that's all that I wanted to show you, and I'm quite happy to answer any questions you might have in terms of what I've shown you so far.
That was great, Nikki. Really, really fascinating. There are a couple of well, there's one. I can see one question. What sewing machine thread and which needles do you use?
The sewing machine thread is just moon thread, so it's very basic, very cheap. The needle is usually a jeans needle, but they last absolutely ages. So it's very, very simple to do, very simple. And as I said, it's good for people who aren't comfortable drawing, so you can get all sorts of interesting results. I mean, I've had students in schools print all sorts of really weird things out, like bats or flamingos, and you know, it just works. You know, it's just very adaptable technique.
Sarah is asking, do you still encapsulate the vinyl?
I do actually. I do. Because you've got to, if you're doing something which is you know, an object, a fish or whatever, you've got to have your tracing. So I would still peel the vinyl from the backing, put it on some PVC, and then put the tracing on the top, because vinyl has got a kind of a paper backing, And so I much prefer to stitch through plastic. So yeah, so it would be layered as before. Yeah.
Lara is asking, do you sandwich between sheets of plastic?
No, it's by the meter. So I buy whole rolls of this. I buy 40 meters of it. So you just cut a piece of PVC according to the size of the piece that you want to create. So I mean, I suppose you could use acetate, or you could possibly use plastic pockets, but they've got to be very clear and see-through, because some plastic pockets can be a bit milky, can't they? But you know, I do recommend using this. It's definitely, you know, very, very versatile.
Nikki's saying that she gets it on her local market stall.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I just didn't know it existed before, you know, and so I was blithely buying shower curtains before I realised that actually my local fabric store had it, and you can find it where the PVC table coverings are. And I just didn't realise it existed until.
Yeah, that's what Nikki's just said. It's table covering. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. I think you can use it for making bags as well, things like that. I think you can use it for various.
How thick is it? How thick is the
Not
PVC?
not very. I mean, I don't think you probably can't really see, but it's very flexible. And no, it's not thick at all. No.
Anybody else got any questions? No.
Well, it's super well. So
So this Genome course that you're running is on the, I think it's is it the 9th of November? So it's about 3 weeks to go. If we can get enough people to come on it. It is a fantastic venue, as you said. It's a really good venue.
Right, the 9th is a Saturday. It can't be the 9th, can it?
No, maybe it's not the 9th then. I've got, oh no, I think we're doing something on the 9th. What is it? It's the 6th. It's the 6th.
Right, so that was Wednesday the 6th. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. It's a Wednesday, which can
Yes.
be an awkward day for teachers if they can't get cover, but yeah.
Fortunately, Genome don't open at the weekend, unfortunately,
No,
which is a pity, but anyway.
no, we've been there a couple of times. Nikki has done a couple of workshops there. Yeah, we don't recruit loads of people because it's midweek, but it's still a fantastic venue to go to.
It's
And
brilliant. I've done I think I did a 2-day workship there just before lockdown, and they provide lunch and everything, and it's
yeah, nice
it's
lunch.
great because everything's on hand. You don't need to bring anything with you. It's just all there.
All the machines, everything's there. Yeah, all the threads, everything.
Every single machine works perfectly. They're just like beautiful brand new machines, and you go
Yes.
into the corner and they've got every single color thread you can imagine just for you to use. Yeah,
You can just take
lovely.
it. You can take it.
Just love it.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah, heavens, Sarah. Yeah, it is. It is if you're a teacher. I mean, we've turned up to schools where they've said that the machines are working, and they're not. They don't. It's just like, oh my God, you spend half the morning actually trying to fix machines. So this venue is fantastic. Yeah. So if you do ever get a chance to go, I would go, because it is a great venue for a workshop.
Yes, and it's really near my house as well, which really appeals to me.
Even better.
Even better, even better. Yeah.
So, well, thank you so much, Nikki. That was really, really good again. I mean, every time you do a session for us, it's always really fascinating. And I've sat through several now, and I always find it really interesting. It's always something slightly different in a different angle. Yeah. So thank you so much for that.
Right, I'm glad you enjoyed it. I hope it's useful for some of you. I hope that you know, you can use it.
Yeah. So Dawn's got to leave us, but that's okay, because I think we are going to wind up now. So yeah, really, really inspiring. Thank you so much again, Nikki.
Okay, you're very welcome.
And hopefully we'll see you all at a workshop sometime, if not at another tea and chat. So thank you all very, very much. And we'll leave it there.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, ladies.